Folks, good afternoon. So much good socialization here, we can't break it up. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Thomas Alberts. I'm the Executive Director for Friends of Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges, and it's my honor to welcome all of you here to our Princeville Moʻolelo series and to continue to do what we do, bringing our community together to chat about all things important in the world of conservation and to bring these different voices together. So delighted to have you. Warm welcome as well for the folks on Zoom. And just to let you know, if you have any questions, Patty will be administering the Zoom room, so feel free to put your questions in there and we'll bring that in. And for us in the room, just being mindful that we have some background noise, try to limit that for the folks on Zoom as well. So in any event, again, welcome, and this is my chance to give a quick little plug about who we are and what we do before I pass it over to our incredible speaker for the day. So these events, again, are a collaboration of the Friends Group, the Friends of Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges, and the Princeville at Hanalei Events Committee. So I really appreciate this space and the community of Princeville for welcoming us and allowing us to bring our stories here into this beautiful space. Who are we? So we are the Friends Group that helps provide support for the 3 national wildlife refuges on this island. We're so fortunate to have 3 spaces set aside, federally protected for the wildlife that desperately need our intervention and our voice and our advocacy and our hard work. And we as a Friends Group support Hanalei, Kuleia, and Kilauea Point. And in so doing, we support seabird populations and waterbird populations. And today we get to extend that conversation over to as well the very important forest birds that we all care so much about as well. But why we get up every day is these birds need our intervention. Humans are having an impact on our environment, and it's up to us to help provide that safety. And we have some of those incredible folks in the room here. We have our shirt and brown representative, Krista, who is part of Fish and Wildlife. Mahalo, Krista, for all you do. Seeing some of our kupu interns over here. Raise your hand for your kupu. We love you, kupu interns. Got some board members in the house, all kinds of volunteers. Just it takes a hui of people to do this work and to continue to support it. And most importantly, it requires all of us to be aware and involved. And here you are. So again, thank you so much. It's a real honor to be here with you. Again, super quick. Oops, something happened on my computer. What'd you do?
That was by me. I clicked on participants.
Super quickly, how we help as a Friends Group. Basically, we provide funding, we provide in-kind staffing support, and community outreach. Again, just bringing our communities together as we are here today. Some of the things that we regularly underwrite is basically boots on the ground work in the refuges, underwriting conservation work and capital improvement projects, wildlife monitoring, a whole host of things that basically need some additional funding that the Fish and Wildlife can't support. All aspects of the mission, we're an honored partner in each of those aspects of that, of what they do. Like I said, getting out and building a community, bringing that community together, taking the story of Fish and Wildlife out into the community. Those are all aspects of who we are that we're really honored to be an extension of what Fish and Wildlife does on property and basically taking that out into the community. One of the programs we're super honored to always support is the rehabilitation of sick and injured birds through our partnership with Save Our Shearwaters. And this year we are providing $40,000 worth of funding to help make sure that every one of those birds from one of our refuges gets the care that they need. Again, thanks to a community of supporters like yourselves. So mahalo for that. And then providing education and supporting Fish and Wildlife education programs, as well as some extensions of activities that we do. One of them we're really pleased for years and years. We've been a partner in helping to provide field trips at Kilauea Point by underwriting free buses. Many times the teachers have the capacity to set aside room in their classroom for our volunteers to go out and to do the work, but they have $0 to get their students here for a field trip. And that's a place that we've been filling in and providing free buses for quite a few years. And so we're really honored to do that and create these inspirational moments with these young people. As a quick aside, I just love talking to local families in the visitor center and saying, when was the last time you were here? And on occasion, they'll just kind of roll their eyes up and say, you know what, I think it was my field trip when I was a third grader. I'm like, first of all, it's amazing that we planted that seed and I see that spark in you. And secondly, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's taking you that long to get back here, but that's okay. That's okay too. Anyway, we know that it plants a seed and it's one of those really important programs we're really honored to be a part of. And the other side of the educational spectrum is our memorial scholarships. And this year we are honored to be giving away $30,000 in scholarships to young people that are studying an education-based career. So something we're really, really pleased to plug into. Okay, enough about us. But again, thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of us. If you are not already receiving our newsletter, there's a sign-up sheet in the back, and you'll continue to hear about the work that we do. If you're online, please check us out online and plug in there to stay a part of our community, because today we are honored to have with us the esteemed Lucho Gomez talking about our forest bird population. So a quick little plug about who he is. Lucho was born and raised in the mountains of Colombia, South America, until his family relocated to the US when he was 9 years old. He has always had a passion for animals and wildlife conservation, so he landed in the right place for sure. He graduated cum laude from Northwood Business School in West Palm Beach, Florida, created 2 successful businesses in education and solar energy, and has a real estate license here on Kauai. So multifaceted gentleman. In addition to when he's not up in the mountains with the forest bird team, he can be found volunteering, working at the Kauai Animal Education Farm, surfing, camping, riding horses, and here today talking story with us about our forest birds. So warm welcome to Lucho Gomez, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Hey guys. Aloha. My name is Lucho. Thank you guys all for being here today.
I'm going to be rude and interrupt you.
Come on in. The water's
I forgot to
fine.
give this to you.
Oh,
Aloha.
thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Thank
brother.
you.
Many mahalo.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys today. This is a project that I'm very, very passionate about. I've only been involved with this team for about a year, so I'm certainly not our foremost expert, but I do love it, and I was available today, so they let me come in and talk to you guys about this. So our talk today is going to be called Saving the Songs of the Forest. These are our 3 most endangered birds on Kauai, which we'll talk about more in depth here in a minute. And when I built this slide, when I started building about what's important, the whole story that we wanted to tell from before we were here and what might happen after we're gone, I wanted someone who sees this slide in the future to be able to go through it on their own without me kind of guiding them through it. So you'll see a lot of information on the pages, which I'll be reading from. But anytime, please feel free to make it a conversation, to interrupt, ask questions, make comments, add little bits of knowledge that maybe you know that I don't know yet. Please feel free to speak up anytime. So who we are, Kauai Forest Birds Recovery Project. Our goals are basically to protect and recover the island's critically endangered native birds. We are a partnership between DOFA here on Kauai, as well as the PCSU, the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit at RCUH, the University of Hawaii. This is kind of like a little rough overview of our team. We're not a huge crew, maybe 15 to 20 people at any time. We've got our project manager up here, Callie, you guys may know. She's kind of like the director of everything. She heads, our fearless leader. We've got an outreach coordinator, a mosquito team coordinator, a bird team coordinator, some supervisors. I'm somewhere here in the middle around the crew lead. So I'm out in the alakai setting mosquito traps, checking them, kind of leading our crews up there. And then we always have field associates coming through and wonderful interns and cuckoos, we call them. Our mission statement, again, essentially just to protect the native forest birds. When we first started, we had a heavy focus on the Akikiki Akike'e Puaiohi and Iiwi, we still very much focus on them. Now we've actually added Anianiao and a couple other birds that are whose numbers are plummeting in the recent years. Our goals are to prevent extinction first and foremost. You know, you'll see here in the presentation that there were so many more birds on Kauai than there are now, native species. Now we've only got about 8 of them left. One of them is just on the brink of extinction in the wild. So that's what we want to prevent. We want to resist extinction, and if we can one day, hopefully eradicate the mosquitoes on island. They're not from here, and they're the main reason why the birds are all why their numbers have been decimated. We want to conserve and restore native habitat. We want to engage the community and spread awareness. I think this is something that every organization can do better at, and it's makes such a difference when you've got a community behind our efforts that supports and spreads awareness about what we're trying to do. So let's meet the birds. These are our clients, if you will. These are the reasons that we're here. We got the akikiki, endemic to Kauai. There's only 2 of them left that we've seen this year. One of them is a bird that's very dear to us, known as Pakele. We call her Queen Pakele, and she's been persisting for a number of years, building nests everywhere, just trying to keep the species alive. We got the akeke. They're also endemic to the island. Last time that there was a published survey, there were about over 700 birds. Since then, their populations has decimated pretty badly. They've kind of gone down a cliff. Some of our teams that are out there observing them every day, even though this number is not yet published, a lot of them estimate that there might be 50 to 100 birds left of the akeke. So if without human intervention, that'll likely be the next one to go after the akikiki. Then we've got the puaiohi. They're also endemic, about 500 left in the wild. As of the latest published paper in 2017, they are critically endangered. We got the iiwi. They're classified as threatened. There's very few iiwi left on Kauaʻi, but they do thrive in other islands. Maui and Big Island have higher peaks, mountains that go up a little bit higher where it's a little bit colder for mosquitoes to go. In those climates, the iiwi does very well. So that's why they're only listed as threatened, even though they are critically endangered on Kauaʻi. The apapane is one of my personally favorite birds. They're just pretty and they move around very happily and bring joy, and you can hear them a lot in the forest. Those fortunately are still doing well. There's over 95,000 more on other islands. They're in the least concern group, but their population is dropping as well. Anianiao, this one is also endemic to Kauai. We'll get a little bit deeper about them, but there is over 3,000 still. Depending on which list you look at, the US list lists them as threatened, the state list lists them as endangered, and there's a third-party one that lists them as vulnerable, but the bottom line is they're in trouble too. Then there's a Kauai elapaio. This is many people's favorite birds. One, because it is seen still fairly common out there, and they're very much in your face. They're not shy. We'll be out there working, and they'll be very close to us, wondering what we're doing, and probably telling us to get out. But it seems like they're being friendly when we're there. We got the Kauai amakihi, also in the least concern. Their population is relatively stable at just over 9,000. Yeah, come on in.
So, given the numbers, is there any way of telling or any indication that the aquaponic is not?
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is yes, they've shown a little bit of resistance. Same with the amakihi, because they're seen in lower elevation areas. But as the temperature rises and mosquitoes are going higher up, their population is still declining. So we don't, I don't think they are fully immune, but they do show some type of resistance, which does give scientists some hope. So great question. So for the akikiki, again, as we spoke about, there's only been 2 seen in the wild. We do have a captive population, kind of like a genetic safety backup, so that if extinction does occur, which really they're functionally extinct at this point, and if our goal is ever reached where we can eradicate mosquitoes from Hawaii, or at least from the alakai, then we have a captive population of birds that we can release back into the wild. And the goal is that they will repopulate their species. They're a small grayish bird with a white belly, super, super cute. I have only seen one in my time with Kauai forest birds. It was not Queen Pakele, but another one named Liko, which we are hoping is one of the other one that has been seen recently. It's hard to tell because when they're unbanded, when they've never been banded before, you really are kind of just going off of appearance and behavior and location. Their diets, they're insectivores, so they eat insects, spiders, larvae, and they are often seen picking on bark, going from tree to tree in the underside of the canopy. This part's a little bit sad because they're used to foraging in pairs or family groups, and now that there's only 2 left, they're obviously only seen foraging by themselves. Oops. So hopefully one day we'll be able to release the population. They can forage as they used to. They're very important because they control the pest populations in our native forests, and they're an indicator species. So wherever they're doing well, we know the forest is doing well. They also help preserve biodiversity and the watershed integrity of the island. So help us keep our water clean. Next, we got the akeke, beautiful little yellow bird. These guys, again, our team estimates that there's probably 50 to 100 left, even though the official numbers are at about 700. We do have a captive population, but we started collecting them a little bit late when their numbers were already plummeting too quickly. So we've only got about 5 adults and 1 egg that we're hoping will hatch successfully. This is what they look like, bright yellow with olive green back. Females are slightly duller, more greenish. Most of the birds, the males will be a little bit brighter with their plumage. They're also insectivores. They eat spiders, caterpillars, and what's really cool about them is they have kind of a cross beak, so it doesn't match up evenly, and they use that to pry open buds and leaves and different things to eat the food. Also like to forage in pairs or small groups, and they are very vulnerable to rats and mosquitoes. We have heard stories of rats that basically just go right up to the birds and will eat the moms who are sitting on the eggs. Because the birds are not used to rats or mosquitoes, they haven't evolved a fear of them. They don't know that they're supposed to run away from them. They were introduced by us to the islands. And these guys are very important as well as far as insect control, forest balance. They're also a pollinator, and they support the health of the native trees. Next, we got the puaiohi, or small Kauaʻi thrush. These guys are pretty cool. They're pretty territorial, so they'll let you know if they don't want you in their area. And they're not very shy. They'll come right up to you. They're a little bit taller and more slender than most birds, so they're pretty easily recognizable. They are our last frugivore. They're our last fruit eater in the Kauaʻi. So once this bird goes, unfortunately, that's the last of our seed dispersers and food spreaders. So this is super important for the forest, because if we are able to control the predators and the pests and all that, it'll be up to these guys to regenerate the forest and disperse all the fruit seeds and all that. So hopefully we'll keep them with us. Their official numbers are less than 500. I've heard some people on the team say they think it's closer to 3. You know, we'll keep monitoring them. Next is the EEV. Again, there's about 160 of these left, maybe less on Kauaʻi. Fortunately, they're doing well in all the other islands, so they're not listed as high on the critically endangered or priority list. But they are a beautiful bird, iconic. You see them on a lot of different chants or hula stories or even memorabilia about Kauai. So it would be great if we can save these guys as well. I recently saw this guy for my first time on Kauai just last week at a camp that they are normally not seen at anymore. So that was super exciting. It's maybe gives us an indication that some of our mosquito control efforts are working and they're able to explore these areas that they've been kind of banished from. Next, we got the apapane, similar looking to the EEV. This is the one that's my personal favorite. It was the first one that I had like a personal experience with when I was out camping in the woods before I ever even joined this project. I got to hang out with one of these guys who kind of lingered around for a little bit. So now they're my favorite. I was very happy to see when I joined the team that they are doing well and still got plenty of them. Hopefully, because they are showing a little bit of resilience, like you asked about to avian malaria, these guys might hold the key to helping some of our more susceptible birds. So we'll find that out in the future. Next, we got the anianiao. This is the smallest of our birds, weighs about 4 pennies, and that's it. There's just under 4,000 of them left, and we do have a captive population, which we are currently collecting. So because the akeke population fell so quickly, so dramatically, we wanted to start collecting these guys before their numbers are anywhere near those levels. They're beautiful birds, small little yellow guy. They feed on nectar. They're also nectar eaters, and they love eating from the ohia lehua. The ohia lehua feeds a lot of our nectar eaters. They love that one, so that's more reason why that tree is so important. The ohia, by the way, is for anyone who might not know, is just the most common tree in the Kauaʻi, native tree, and the lehua is a beautiful red flower that the birds eat the nectar off of. These guys are pretty elusive. They're not as loud, and they're a little bit more shy, so they're harder to see. It's really a treat getting to see these guys, and they're usually around the mid canopy or understory. These guys are so widespread that conservation efforts to save these guys is really protecting the whole alakai and every other bird as well. Next, we got the Kauaʻi elepaio. This is the one that I mentioned is a lot of people's favorites simply because they have what a lot of people would say is the most personality out of all the birds. They'll come right up to you, ask you what you're doing, tell you to get out. We don't really know what they're saying. Sometimes they seem really fun and excited, but they could just be irritated that we're there. Who knows, right? They are insectivores. They are fly catchers. So I've actually seen these guys dart straight to a tree, start poking in a hole, then a fly moth's out, and they'll chase the fly, catch it midair, and either eat it or feed it to their young, the fly or the moth, whatever it may be. These guys, like I mentioned, they're very curious, very bold. They have no problem approaching humans. They like to nest up in the shrubs and trees, and their nests are also very vulnerable to rats and mosquitoes. So one of our big efforts out there is actually setting rat trap grids and trying to cull the population of invasive rats in the alakai. These guys have been a symbol of guidance and craftsmanship in Hawaiian culture. I'm not sure how true this story is, but I had someone tell me that ancient canoe builders would look at this bird and use it as an indicator of whether to use a certain tree for a canoe or not. If the bird was constantly digging in the canoe and pulling out grubs, then they probably wouldn't use that tree because it was infested and probably rotten. But if the elepaio walked along the whole trunk and flew away, then they would look to that tree as a possible good canoe candidate because it had no infestations. Next, we got the Kauaʻi amakihi. I mentioned these guys were of the least concern, but their populations are dropping as well. They're a little bit bigger than the anianiao, and they've got a little bit longer and curved beak that's specialized for nectar eating. A lot of the features that these birds have, whether it's the iiwi's long beak or the akeke's crossbill, evolved with the island. They came here as one ancestral species, which we'll talk about, and they evolved with the flora and fauna to be able to take advantage of the different flowers that are here and different types of food. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's called adaptive radiation. And these guys, because they also show some resilience to avian malaria, they might hold some of the clues to that resistance as well for some of the other birds. So how did all these honey creepers get here? Let's go back a little bit and talk about their story. Hawaii used to be home to over 130 native species of birds. At least 50 plus of them were Hawaiian honey creepers. They got the name because of the way that they creep through the trees and the canopy, eating the nectar from all the different leaves or flowers. So that's why they call them honey creepers. They are similar, could be compared to Darwin's finches in the Galapagos in the way that all those came from one specific species and then evolved to be all these different beautiful birds of paradise. Similar things happen here. These birds were also found nowhere else in the world. So once we lose those guys, that's it. That species is gone from the planet and unlikely to ever be seen again. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier. They basically adapted to their different habitats and diets and areas that they were around. So single ancestral finch, some really amazing finch somehow made it from Asia to Hawaii. So that's at least 2,400 miles, um, a pretty long way for a small finch to travel. So that alone is an extremely rare and miraculous event. The reason that people think they landed on Kauaʻi first is simply because Kauaʻi was the first island that came out of the ocean. Um, so we believe that that first finch came around the same time that Kauaʻi came out of the water, about 5 million years ago. Then they evolved with the land, and as other islands kept coming up, they started populating all the different islands. Um, and that's the process that I was talking about called adaptive radiation, which is essentially evolution, but at hyperspeed in an isolated place with no competition, no predators, just free to evolve to fit wherever, whatever specialization they were bucketed into. Some became nectar eaters, other insect eaters, and others seed dispersers. Um, the Let's see, what else can we talk about? So that's pretty much it for this slide. The only other part that we'll talk about is that as we did introduce mosquitoes, predators, and habitat destruction, pretty much the vast majority of them went extinct. And the ones that haven't yet are listed as fairly endangered. So let's go back even further to the very beginning from the birth of Hawaii and see how we got to where we're at now. So from 70 to 30 million years ago, the Hawaiian Islands formed over a volcanic hotspot. So it was all underground, underwater, and volcanoes just kept erupting, and lava rocks kept stacking on top of itself. This took millions of years for the islands to come up out of the water into the 4,000 peaks, 4,000 foot peaks that we have in Hawaii today. Initially, it was all barren lava rock. But then life slowly started colonizing the islands through these crazy rare events, like seeds being blown in the wind or the ocean currents from 2,400 miles away, insects being blown in by storm, and then the birds that can fly miraculously long distance flights and leave their droppings on island and leave their seeds and stuff. This is a Laysan albatross. There's a group called Save Our Shearwaters on Kauai, and they're amazing at helping these guys thrive and survive. These birds can fly for years at a time. They can spend years out at sea. So they're probably some of the ones that helped colonize the island with life. With all that isolation, having no large animals here, no predators, and no contact with the outside world, we were able to breed uniqueness, much like Darwin's finches and the birds of paradise. So this gave way, millions of years of being able to evolve in this isolated archipelago gave way for plants like the silver swords, which are super special plants that bloom once and then die, only seen in Hawaii. So a lot of them at Haleakala National Park. We got the Iiwi, who evolved specifically to pick some of these flowers and drink the nectar. This is the Kauai Akealoa, similar to the Iiwi, but even a longer beak, even more specialized to their environment. Unfortunately, the last one was seen in 1969. So that's an example of a bird that will never be seen again on our planet. We've got happy face spiders, which are, they look like they got a little happy face on their back. And those guys are specifically endemic to Hawaii as well. And a lot of other species. This is a Hawaiian hoary bat. It's a little species of bat endemic to Hawaii. And of course, the state bird, the nene goose. This is a great story of conservation because they were almost endangered and being wiped out. And then they were able to come back through human intervention and protection. So this all happened over millions of years, right? And then we fast forward to just about 1,000 to 1,200 years ago when the first humans arrived. So millions of years of no human contact and no outside world contact. And then all of a sudden humans came, Polynesians came in these big double hull ocean canoes to find a beautiful paradise, a very fertile land, very green land, but unfortunately no food that humans were familiar with. So humans had to bring what's called canoe plants and canoe animals. Canoe plants are anything like taro or kalo, ulu, breadfruit, noni, things like that, bananas, sugarcane, anything that was brought over by humans that did not exist here. And that is what helped the Polynesians settle, but obviously it started changing the habitat for the native species quite a bit. Also, they brought in their canoe animals like pigs, dogs, and chickens. So you guys probably have had some type of encounter with a pig on island or seen one on the road or everything. That's because when they first came here, and still today, they have no natural predators. So those guys can go anywhere they want, survive anywhere they like. Pigs are very hardy. I also work at a rescue farm in Kauaʻi, and this is actually one of our rescue babies. So they're super sweet and cuddly, and as long as we keep them at the farm for their whole life, they won't be an issue to the native ecosystem. But the ones that are out there are very invasive. Pigs also cannot sweat, so the only way for them to keep cool is to sniff out water. They can smell water that's underground, and they use their noses, which are like a very powerful muscle shovel, and they'll dig it up and dig it up, dig it up until they've created a nice body-sized kind of jacuzzi or cool pool. Then the water all comes up, they lay in it. That's how they keep cool. They leave the wallow hole, and perfect mosquito habitat. Mosquitoes lay their larvae in stagnant water, lay their eggs in stagnant water, and the larva hatches from those eggs and eats all the bacteria in there, and then hatch into mosquitoes. So pigs are a big accomplice to mosquitoes becoming an issue for the native birds. So fast forward a couple more 100 years, and we've got Captain Cook. He was the first European person to make contact with the native Hawaiians at the time, who had been living in isolation since they discovered the islands. So much like the birds don't have immunity to a lot of the diseases that are being brought over by invasive birds and mosquitoes, the Polynesians, the initial Polynesians that colonized Hawaii and had been living in isolation for a long time, and they were the original Hawaiians, also had no immunity to some of the European and American diseases that were brought in by the later later humans. First came a lot of missionaries from New England, and during that time, around the 1800s, which was like the rise of the plantation era and the missionaries' dominance of the island, is when the native population of humans started dying off. So a missionary doctor that was here during that time wrote that I can compare epidemics to nothing but a raging battle with all its turmoil and its sad scenes of death and carnage. From the Pew Research Center, a study based in 2015 that's based on about 700,000 Hawaiians living here pre-contact. 1 in 17 native Hawaiians had died within 2 years of Cook's arrival. By 1800, so that's right after Cook arrived, people started dying. By 1800, about 20 years later, the population had declined by 48%. 20 years after that, declined by 71%. 20 years after that, 84%. What happened to the native Hawaiians is what's happening to the birds as well. They've had no immunity to diseases from the outside world. Europeans and Americans also brought in cattle and goats, deer, different ungulates that help spread invasive seeds all over the Kauaʻi. So wherever you go in some of the beautiful forests in the mainland that you see a bunch of guava trees, those are pretty cool for us, but they do nothing for the native Hawaiian birds, and they are being spread up the mountains by pigs and deer that are eating their fruit and spreading their seeds out. The first mosquitoes, who is our main culprit in destroying the native bird species, was brought here in a whaling ship in 1826, and then they quickly adapted to the tropical climate. It's like mosquito haven over here, especially the Culex kinkafasciatus, also known as a southern house mosquito. That's the one that's attacking the animals. They're mostly nocturnal mosquitoes, so they don't affect humans as much. A little brown mosquito, and they're just all over the mountains right now. They lay their eggs in these little rafts that they have been taking advantage of the pig wallows to, almost overpopulate on steroids. We set out these traps at night since they're nocturnal, and we check them all in the morning. We try to capture them, send them to a lab preserved in ethanol, and find out how many have malaria, how widespread they are, what other diseases they're bringing. all sorts of things. Also, another thing that kind of accelerated the habitat loss of all the birds is when we brought ranching and sugarcane planting and all that, pineapple plantations and all that, we destroyed a lot of their native forest to make way for agriculture. So fast forward a little bit again, and we've got the plantation era and the territorial rule. So the 1800s saw the rise of the plantation economy, mainly sugarcane and pineapple. So Big Sugar, Dole was a big player in this. This is over here. His name is actually Sanford Dole, and he's one of the descendants of the original missionaries. I believe maybe James Dole, but don't quote me on that, who realized that there was a big opportunity for business here, and they kind of created a committee of businessmen that was able to get a U.S. Navy ship to back them in order to overthrow the monarchy. Their committee, who had over the years been friendly with the monarchy, started coming up with a lot of laws that would limit the monarchy's power and give them more power. When Queen Liliuokalani, the last monarch, ascended to be the queen of Hawaii, the last queen of Hawaii, she started pushing back on that a little bit. And that's when these guys basically overthrew the Hawaiian monarchy. And that gave rise to the era of plantation and deforestation, unfortunately. Throughout this period, many native species went extinct due to habitat loss, hunting, and disease, of course. Some of the modern threats that we're facing now, the biggest one, of course, is mosquitoes and avian malaria, and of course, the looming extinction of our beloved species. The introduction of the kulex was absolutely catastrophic. That's really where all the birds started dying at rates that we are having a very hard time combating. They spread avian malaria and avian pox, to which these native birds have absolutely no resistance to. They've never had it. Avian malaria, by the way, is a parasite. And let's say for the EEV, for example, I've heard experts say that if an EEV gets bit by a mosquito, they could be dead within 36 hours. So they're extremely, extremely susceptible. And we started noticing that the line where mosquitoes couldn't cross, birds were doing okay up there. They were still thriving in their numbers in their little colonies. But below that threshold where it was warm enough for mosquitoes to reproduce and thrive, virtually no birds are left, with the exception of a few who have been showing a little bit of resilience to it. Nowadays, the line, which used to be below the tallest peak in Kauai, is above the highest peak in Kauai. So in the summer months, when it's warm and good mosquito weather, there's nowhere that the birds can hide. Kauaʻi Plateau is no longer a safe haven for them. So basically, we're racing against time. This is a kind of gnarly visual of how mosquitoes will bite the birds just through the eye membrane there. So now Hawaii is known as the extinction capital of the world. Conservation projects like ours are doing our best to fight to save the last of these remaining species and suppressing mosquito populations, but it's really an uphill battle. We're obviously going to keep going and keep trying, but we would like as much community support and awareness as possible so we can find out what other tools and weapons we have against these mosquitoes and other factors. Right now, our best weapons against them are something called BTI and Incompatible Insect Technique. So we'll dive into those here in a second. Also, it's not just us that's doing this. We are very fortunate to have a lot of organizations on island that are kind of working adjacent to us. Each is focused on their own separate role. We're obviously focused mostly on the birds. DOFA focuses on a lot of different things. The Kauai Invasive Species Committee, it focuses on invasive plants and animals. The Nature Conservancy does a great job at maintaining the camps out there. They also suppress predator and invasive animal populations. And a couple others as well. So for us, I can only speak to our strategies, are going to be the BTI, which is Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. It's basically a bacteria that was found in Israel, which happens to target and kill mosquito larvae. It's very specific to mosquito larvae, as well as I think black flies and some fungal flies. But essentially, the main takeaway from this is that it's safe to all of our native species. It can also be delivered via helicopter, which is great for us because the swamps where we're working at is very inaccessible. So the helicopter helps us get them there. Then we've got Incompatible Insect Technique, which is basically we're releasing lab-reared sterile mosquitoes, and we'll dive more into that here in a minute. And those mosquitoes that we're releasing are male mosquitoes. So male mosquitoes can't bite. Only female mosquitoes have a proboscis and are able to bite in order to lay their eggs. Male mosquitoes just drink nectar. So we're releasing them. They're mating with the female populations, and then those females, when they lay their eggs, the eggs will never hatch. So that's our incompatible insect technique. Okay, I think we can skip through this here. Oh, we also do captive care and conservation breeding when it's necessary. So we partner with San Diego Zoo. They've got our Akikiki captive population. We also partner with the Honolulu Zoo. They've got our Anianiao that we've been collecting, and they're raising them and holding them basically as a genetic failsafe, a genetic backup if these species do go extinct in the wild. So let's dive into BTI. Again, Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. I've been practicing this one all week and I'm still kind of having trouble. So thanks for bearing with me. It's actually a naturally occurring bacterium found in soil. So we're not using any chemicals or any man-made products. This is all already found in nature. We're simply redeploying it where it's useful to us. I mentioned this already. It was discovered in Israel. And it specifically targets mosquito larvae along with black fly and fungus gnats. Harmless to humans, pets, wildlife, and pollinators. There's a very specific substance in the alkaline gut of the mosquitoes' larva, which activates the protein that is harmful to them. So without that, we can drink the BTI straight out of the bottle or eat it like cereal and we would never know, it's completely harmless. I don't recommend it, but so this is a little bit more information about BTI. It exists in two different forms. This one is the vegetative cells, which under the right conditions, they can multiply. And then there is the spores. So the spores are the ones that have the protein crystals, and the protein crystals are what affects the gut of the larva. When the mosquito larva ingest the spores, then those crystals dissolve in their alkaline gut. They activate the toxins, and the toxins are these proteins that essentially cause pores in the gut lining of the larva. So they puncture the gut cells. They cause septicemia and death within hours. This just means like severe blood poisoning. And then the cycle continues as we get BTI, load up the helicopter, spray all the stagnant water in the algae. The birds can still drink from it and be fine. Even adult mosquitoes are not affected by it, but no larva will be born out of those wallow holes as long as there is BTI in there. There is history behind BTI. We're not like the guinea pigs that are first using this or anything. It was found in the 70s, commercialized in the 80s, widely spread. You could go online or even go to ACE some places and buy BTI there. It's great for farms. So I mentioned I work at a rescue farm, Kauaʻi Animal Education Farm in Kauaʻi. So of course I use BTI in all of our water. So we're happy to say we're not breeding any mosquitoes there like most farms do, just by the nature of having standing water. They've also had success stories in Cambodia, Malaysia, Puerto Rico. A lot of these countries will put it directly into their drinking water so that they're not breeding mosquitoes there. Key West, Florida, as well as Singapore and Rwanda. It's proven highly effective in controlling mosquito populations in wetlands, marshes, catch basins, and storm drains. Obviously use it to reduce disease transmission. And here, it's a key component, one of the only two weapons that we have against mosquitoes. Are we doing on time, Thomas? Awesome, thank you. Cool. There are some limitations and challenges with BTI. It's got a very short lifespan in the environment, which on one side is good because we know that it's safe. It's all going to go away pretty quick. But on the other hand, it has to be continuously reapplied. After about 2 weeks is the longest time that that the bacteria can survive out there. So we're filling up these helicopters every other Saturday and doing about an 8-hour day of just they come, we fill them up, and they go out there and follow the grid. And we're keeping about a 2-mile radius of the alakai safe from any hatching larva. At the farm, I've noticed sometimes I have to apply even like a week and a half into it or a week into it that the larva will start being able to live again in some of these pools. So they've got a fairly short lifespan in the environment, and they don't eliminate the breeding site. So even though we will kill the BTI will kill all the larvae in a pig wallow, that pig wallow is still there. And if we skip a Saturday, or as it looks like it might be happening in a couple of weeks, if we run out of funding for this, then that wallow hole is going to become mosquito habitat again, and we kind of have to start the whole process over. So yep, that basically takes care of that. Why it's ideal for conservation. Non-toxic to native birds, mammals, fish, and insects. Doesn't persist in the food web or pollute waterways. Again, has to be continuously reapplied if we want it to keep working. Otherwise, it just dies off. Can be aerially applied. These are our partners, in the previous helicopter picture, are Airborne Aviation, if you guys have heard of them. They're the ones that we partner with to spread this all over the Kauaʻi. And it's also used in organic farming as a biological control agent, considered a biopesticide by the EPA. So it's approved for very sensitive ecosystems like our forests. So moving on to IIT. Any questions on BTI before I move on, or makes sense? I did, yeah. Just wanted to test it. You didn't drink the Capri Sun, did you? Oh. So yeah, that's BTI. Moving on to Incompatible Insect Technique for mosquito suppression. This is pretty cool. It's actually really interesting. I didn't know anything about this until I started with the project, so I'm still learning myself. But essentially, it's a biological mosquito control method. Involves releasing male mosquitoes who are either sterile, that's SIT, or who are incompatible with our native females, and that's IIT. So the male mosquitoes that are incompatible because they're infected with a specific bacteria called Wolbachia, which lives inside the mosquito. And if a male mosquito has a strain of Wolbachia and mates with a wild female mosquito that doesn't have the strain, then their eggs won't hatch. So a female mosquito will only mate once in her life and then lay her eggs and die. So that generation of mosquitoes, if it's mated with one of our males that we've dropped, that generation ends right there. That's the end of the line. So it's a very effective tool, already been proven effective in a couple other places. Very species specific, non-GMO and non-toxic. We're using a bacteria that's basically already there. The scientific background on Wolbachia, this is what it looks like. And it's a naturally occurring bacterium found in over 60% of insect species, but they're not naturally present in most mosquito species. So that do transmit disease, like the Culex skinca fasciatus. The females here don't have that strain of Wolbachia. So the key is to make sure that every single mosquito we're releasing is a male and has that strain of Wolbachia. As long as we can check off those 2 boxes, then it's a pretty fire-tested and true method at mosquito control. I mentioned how the females only mate once, so all we need them to do is mate with one of our males, and that's it for that entire generation. How IIT works in practice. So the lab-reared mosquitoes are infected with that specific Wolbachia strain. This happens over in California. Our lab partners called Verily. They're geniuses over there. They use AI and human filters to make sure that no female mosquito is ever released in the alakai. And even after that, even though we trust them with that, we're still constantly checking our traps and all over the alakai to make sure that we don't catch any female mosquitoes that are infected with that specific strain of Wolbachia. If we do, we would have to stop releasing them and let the nature kind of right itself and then start releasing them again later on. We're often release them by helicopter, although sometimes, we get the mosquitoes from the airport. We've only got about a week at the most that they'll live after we get them here. So it's very important that we get them from the airport, bring them to our lab, load them up in these hoppers that we have that we then take in the helicopters and drop them every 3 seconds as the helicopter flies in a 2-mile radius. So if it's raining that day and the helicopters can't fly, we don't want those mosquitoes to go to waste. That's another thing about this, is it's very expensive. So we will hand release them and just take trucks out to certain areas where we know that there are too many mosquitoes, and we'll release them there and control the population there. Again, since the eggs are inviable, once they've mated with the native females, no offspring will be produced, and that's gradually reducing the mosquito population. These are the hoppers. Every one of these tubes has maybe 400, 500 mosquitoes, live mosquitoes in them. We drop them, they go do their thing and help us control their population. Also, since traditional pesticides harm the native species ecosystem, that's why IIT has become so popular. It's targeted, it's safe, and it's a sustainable alternative. It also complements BTI in the sense that they're targeting different life cycles of the mosquito. So the BTI is targeting the larva, and the IIT is targeting the adult mosquitoes and their grafts. Advantages of IIT: highly specific, it's environmentally friendly, it's self-limiting. The release males, their only job as male adult mosquitoes is to mate. So once they've done that, they essentially die off and they don't persist in the environment. Also, our native forests are super sensitive to any outside touch, like we mentioned. So it's important that it's safe for ecologically sensitive areas. Some of the challenges and considerations with BTI: the accidental release of females can reduce the technique's effectiveness. Obviously, if we release a female there with the same strain, the eggs will hatch. It requires mass rearing, quality control, and precise sex sorting. So we rely on the experts at Verily for that. And then we're obviously doing our checking and our mosquito traps here to make sure that they just kind of like an extra layer of checking. Works best when male to female ratios are very high. So we have to release a ton of male mosquitoes for this to have high fidelity, and that's why we're out there releasing basically all those pods of mosquitoes. Absolutely.
Data on both of those
BTI and IIT?
Yeah.
Yep. Not as much on this island because we're so new. Maui has been doing this for about a year, so we're relying on some of their data, which is showing positive. Mm-hmm. Winter's better. Winter's better. We're doing it constantly year round. We do find that in our traps in the winter, we catch less mosquitoes. In the summer months, especially after big rain events, we'll catch lots of mosquitoes. But yeah, there is no longer any place in Kauai where a mosquito cannot go during the summer months. The one thing I will mention is since we started doing IIT drops, we expanded our trapping efforts quite a bit. So let's say at a certain camp, we used to have 8 mosquito traps that we would check in a given week. We now have 35 there. So we really want to make sure that we're gathering the best data so that when we've been doing this long enough, we'll be able to tell you guys about it. Yes, sir?
We live in Arizona part of the year.
Oh, nice. No.
I never get it.
Yeah, it's because of us. You're welcome. So that's actually a really good question. Thanks for being here. I'm sure it's a nice change of scenery for you. Yeah, the mosquitoes that bite people here are mostly called Aedes aegypti. It's actually a different kind of mosquito. So unfortunately, we have nothing to do with that. But this is just anecdotal from my own experience. I've noticed that they are kind of a wimpy bite. I rarely get them too. And even when I do get bit by the Aedes, it lasts like 10 minutes and goes away. I'm sure the ones on the mainland are kind of like on steroids compared to our ones here. Cool.
So is there an end in sight? The country is on
Have you been able to eradicate?
Yeah, so the question was if there's an end in sight to these mosquitoes. Sorry, Thomas, I forgot to
No, that's
repeat.
okay.
Historically,
Yeah, so there is some success stories, but not yet. So especially in Hawaii, where we're at right now, we are like approaching the base trail of Mount Everest, and the goal is to get to the top. Almost like, you know how humans, one of the goals for some humans is to colonize the solar system, but we've barely made it to the moon. That's kind of where we're at here. We just got the funding. It's extremely expensive. We just got the funding to basically treat this like 2 mile radius, you know, of the entire Kauaʻi plateau. So the results are good so far, but then the challenge is going to be getting funding to do it over the entire Kauaʻi plateau, and then somehow translate that to the entire island of Kauai and the entire archipelago of Hawaii. So I personally don't see an end in sight at the moment, but we know that as long as we keep doing this with fidelity and keep finding out more weapons and more ways to stop, you know, this culprit, even if we don't figure out, somebody will. Our predecessors will. We just kind of have to keep driving in that direction, even though we don't see the finish line. Does that make sense?
you mentioned
Yep, you are right on it. So actually the very next slide talks about how in China they've had major success with mosquito suppression using IIT and SIT, which is where they just basically radiate mosquitoes into being sterile and then release those males. California and Florida, they're also having earlier is more recent results. But so far the early results are good, and they are targeting the Aedes aegypti, the ones that affect humans more, and then us. So we're definitely not the first one. BTI has been used more, has been around longer, but there is also some success with IIT. So hopefully we'll get there. It's definitely, I don't think it's an unreachable goal by any means. I will keep dedicating my time to it for as long as I can, and I know that as long as we keep doing that with fidelity, somebody will get to that finish line. I just don't see it right now, but I got time. We'll figure it out. So how it's used on Kauai. The efforts are led by our team. We're also in partnership with Birds Not Mosquitoes and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Releases are conducted in the high elevation forest where the birds are most at risk. So if the Kauaʻi Plateau was kind of like an outline here, this is where we're releasing the mosquitoes. So it's a very small specified area. A camp near camps like Mohihi and Drinking Glass, where it's just beautiful pristine forest, and we think that birds, you guys know, should be around more than they are. I mentioned how IIT and BTI complement each other, providing coverage across different mosquito life stages, larva versus adult mating mosquitoes. And essentially, the key takeaway is that IIT is an innovative, precision-based conservation tool that helps reduce mosquito populations without harming native species. Here, it's great because we do have so many sensitive native species that we want to save, while at the same time eradicating mosquitoes and protecting them from malaria. So to kind of summarize everything, we are at a tipping point on our island. Our birds are at a very scary time where global warming has given access to mosquitoes everywhere on the island, and their numbers are just plummeting. Like I mentioned, this cute little guy here, there's only 2 of that we know of in the wild. We're hoping that maybe there's a handful that we haven't seen, but 2 for sure. Without intervention, we are certainly going to risk losing these species, which are unrecoverable. They exist nowhere else on the planet. Also wanted to give a shout out to Graham Talber. He took a lot of these pictures. I actually kind of just poached them from his Instagram. amazing photographer. His Instagram handle is Oreomistis, which is the Akikiki's scientific name. He does a lot of work with us, very generous guy. Just a good person all around. I highly encourage everyone, if you love these birds, to follow him for more pictures. And he is just a wealth of knowledge about these guys. I know maybe like 10% of what he knows about these birds. So what we're doing about it, BTI drops via helicopter. So where I just showed you guys the graphic of where we're dropping the mosquitoes is probably around here somewhere. And then this is where, maybe even closer here. And then this is where we're doing the BTI drops. So 2 different areas. So, and then we have a control area up here near Kauaʻi camp where we're not doing anything, but we're gathering the data. So we're able to compare those 3 different areas of the Kauaʻi, see what's working best and what to do next. Also, I mentioned our captive breeding program, the habitat protection, and the research by all the different groups that we've got on the island. So how can you guys join the effort to protect Kauai's native birds? Really spreading awareness is huge. So following our socials, sharing those, telling your friends about us, engage the whole community. We're hoping to do more of these events with Thomas and everyone, and just keep spreading awareness. Also, you can volunteer. We love having volunteers, and most volunteers that come out with us really, really love it. It is roughing it out there, camping out in the woods. So maybe some people aren't built for that, but for the most part, everyone that comes out leaves with having a beautiful experience and is able to help us out a lot too. Supporting organizations through donating or partnering with all these different wonderful organizations to keep spreading the word. And of course, just staying informed, keep coming to these meetings and supporting science-based solutions, helping break through the myths and scary stories that are out there. You know, I've had a lot of people ask me like, hey, why are you releasing mosquitoes? Don't you know that they bite us, you know? And then I have, you know, it's nice to kind of break those myths and debunk some of those misconceptions. So now that you guys know a lot about this, you can do that yourselves in your communities. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you guys being here. This was super fun to talk about. You can tell I'm very passionate about these little birds. I even had my friend draw me as a fairy riding an alapaio, spearing mosquitoes. So hopefully we'll do this again soon. Thank you guys so much. Mahalo, mahalo.
Any other questions for Lucho?
Oh yeah.
I have a question.
So I saw a
Hold
movie
on.
on PBS long ago about
Okay, birds, and in particular the Aki-Kiki.
Yeah.
Do you know
I know
how we
someone.
can get a hold of that movie? Because we do have movie nights occasionally here in Princeville.
I will get your information and I will
Okay.
find out. I don't know off the top of my head. I know we have a lot of our stuff on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
but I'll get you the links and that would be super cool. to have a
Okay.
movie night. Thank you.
All right.
It's a great,
Sure.
great idea.
Sure.
Of the 2 programs you have. And the predator-proof fence. fencing
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
they
that's a great.
reduce swallows.
Yeah, that's a great question. So TNC, I believe, is the organization that mostly does the fences. And because of those fences are the reasons why a lot of the camps that we get to go to are beautiful, pristine native camps, because they prevent the ungulates from going over there, prevent the pig wallows from forming. And then if there are ungulates stuck inside the fence area, they will come and dispatch them. So yes, there's a lot of crossover. We really couldn't do this without help from DOFA and TNC and all of our other amazing partners. So it's kind of like a multifaceted effort. Good point.
So some of your site is within a predator-proof
Yep,
area.
a few of them are, yeah. So they are these huge fenced-in areas all over the Kauaʻi, and some of our camps are in there. Yep, that's where I saw the EEV recently. So thanks to those fences. Yes.
What's the name of that bird in the hand there on the upper left?
Oh, this guy, that's actually one of the native dragonflies from the island. So it looks like a bird, and you see them flying overhead, and you'll see their shadow because they're so big. So that's a common misconception. Yes, sir.
Where do you get the Wolbachia mosquitoes from?
Verily, a lab called Verily. I believe they're in San Francisco, somewhere in the Bay Area of California, I believe. And yeah, they ship them to us and we get them straight from the Hui airport in these big boxes, take them in, put them in the hoppers and release them the very next day. Not Amazon, not yet. We'll talk about commercializing them. Yes, sir.
Are the BIT and the IIT like areas the exact same, or is it like separate areas, like a Venn diagram of them,
Yeah,
or like-
good question. So separate, so that way we have studies on how the BTI is working alone, how the IIT is working alone, and then a separate control area where we're not doing anything, but we're trapping mosquitoes and collecting data there as well. As you can probably guess, the IIT area and the BTI areas are the most native. And the one where we're not doing anything is where we see the most invasive plants and most mosquitoes. Yep, good question. Either one, whoever, you two duke it out. Okay, you go first.
You mentioned that the IIT, the Wolbachia mosquitoes are really expensive, but
Yes.
BTI is cheap, is it not? Or at least fairly cheap. I mean, I realize the spreading is probably not
Exactly.
cheap,
You're right on it. So the BTI product itself is fairly expensive, but nowhere near as much as the mosquitoes are. But it's the spreading it. So we have helicopter budgets, right? And for those helicopter budgets, we have to apply for grants. Once that grant is over, like currently the grant that we're using right now is almost over. I think we have 1 or 2 sprays left, and then there's nothing behind it backing it up. So we're kind of desperately trying to figure out how to keep that effort going and not let there be too big of a gap where everything we've done this past year is almost gonna have to be done again.
right? Especially since these areas are small and they
Tiny
need to
and
be
surrounded by mosquitoes.
surrounded by
Yep,
mosquitoes, right? So
exactly.
the program has to continue. Like, so
Absolutely.
have there any thoughts about how to scale that in the future? I mean, obviously, if it's expensive,
There's
that
been
becomes
thoughts, there's been
problem.
passionate meetings and arguments about it. And yeah, I mean, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone knows that we don't have the answer, but we're definitely working on it, trying.
the hard problem.
Yeah, yeah. Good questions though.
Over here, we do have one online as well, if I may.
Okay.
Which is
And then
similar to the question that was,
Oh, okay, cool.
I was
Perfect.
gonna say, it's similar to this question as well. It's what's the status of your funding?
Yeah, questionable. Yeah, I guess right now is not uncommon for a lot of nature programs to be questioning their funding, right? Fortunately, when all the funding issues with other conservation groups happened this year, our funding was already in the bank, so they couldn't take it back. So we know we're safe for a year as far as keeping our team going and our basic efforts going. The one piece of funding that I do know is in trouble, and I think I'm allowed to say, hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for this, but is the BTI funding. We are desperately looking for a way to keep that going.
As a follow-up to that, is most of your funding through individual contributions and donations, or is most of your funding through federal or state or other types of grants?
Both. It's I don't know the exact percentages, but it's definitely both. The latest BTI funding was being done through a grant. But we do get a lot of generous donations as well, which help kind of, especially when the government money is limited, there's more, we rely more on the donation side.
How much funding is needed?
Blank check. It's a big number. That's a conversation where I probably don't even have the authorization to have, but whoever is asking that, please let them know to give us their, address, information, social security number. And we would love to get in touch with them and give them more specific answers on that.
We have one over here.
Anybody else? Cool.
Non-funding. And you mentioned the Kauai amakihi has some resilience to avian malaria. Is that showing in the same as the Oahu amakihi and the Hawaii amakihi?
That's actually a really good question. I don't know the answer to it. I I know that here the Amakihi and Elapayo and Apapane have shown resilience. I would imagine since they are very closely related subspecies that those other islands do as well. But that's something that I would definitely have to look into more. It's a good question for me to learn. Thank you.
Great
Cool. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
Really appreciate
awesome.
this.
Well, hello, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and thank you again
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much, Daddy.
Aloha.
So fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
Love that. What time is it? Do you know? How did we do? Nice. We did it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
With you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.